Phase 5 has officially kicked off in the MCU, and we're going to talk all about the start of it right now.
So, what's it gonna be? Ant-Man.
Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania has officially released, and just before we talk about it, spoilers are included in this video, so if you don't want to see those, go watch the movie, then come back later, because I greatly appreciate it. Again, spoilers, you have been warned. Go ahead and talk about the good, the average, and some of the bad. Let's do this.
Ooh, that's good.
Kicking things off with the good of this movie, this honestly is a very enjoyable story. It's pretty simple from beginning to end, but it is done very, very well. It's a solid story that I think is fairly entertaining. Jeff Loveness is the one who wrote this movie, and he actually will be writing the Kang Dynasty, which has me excited for the Kang Dynasty. One of the big things with this was we wanted to see Kang the Conqueror, and we get that in this movie. Jonathan Majors delivers a menacing performance where he really just destroys everything. I mean, he is extremely menacing, deadly. He is a strong villain and is portrayed very, very well. Even though he is extremely evil, like there is no part of him that is broken whatsoever. He does have some moments where you kind of feel like you understand him. In a sense, you understand his motivations as to why, even though it is very destructive for literally everything inside the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Jonathan Majors delivers in this movie, and he is the peak highlight to this movie. I was pleasantly surprised by this. Easily one of the top 3, and he's not number 3. One thing that, really should always be on the good side, but just because of all the wackiness that happened in the last phase, the CGI was actually really, really solid. There was a lot to do in this movie. I mean, there's like maybe 15, 20 minutes at the most on Earth, and everything else is inside the quantum realm, which means green screens, the volume, stuff like that. And they had a lot of visual effects help. I mean, seriously, the credits were long for that. But it is all deserved. The CG was done very, very well. And thank you. Of course, Paul Rudd does a fantastic job portraying Scott Lang, Ant-Man. And he really continues to grow with this character. But one that really stood out, Michael Douglas, Hank Pym. Honestly, while he didn't have a giant role compared to the last 2 Ant-Man movies, he does have a sizable role. Not too small, but not too big, kind of just right. There really isn't any antics with his role, and he doesn't really up the ante until you see him in the last little bit of the movie, where it just goes bananas with ants. But honestly, like, Michael Douglas just does a fantastic job portraying, of course, Hank Pym, the original Ant-Man. Oh, and no, I'm not apologizing for the ant puns. They only go up from here. So I'm sorry if that gets you a little antsy. Sorry, not sorry. My antics are too much.
Something good, something bad, a bit of both.
One of the okay parts of this movie is to the characters. MODOK, for the most part, is done pretty decently. I mean, it's hard to transfer this wacky, zany character into live action. I think they did an okay job. I mean, it does look odd. But granted, you're trying to put a guy with a big head, tiny arms, into live action. It doesn't really end well for anybody, but I think they did okay with it. I kind of got used to it after a little bit. But the thing is that while his character for the most part was good, I don't know how well he kind of fit into the story. Sure, it made sense from just, his character and whatnot, but the fact that it was Darren Cross and just how he fits into the bigger overall story, I'm still a little iffy about it. Personally, if I was to write the MCU, I would have made him a Captain America villain, with him taking control of AIM. I don't know how it would have worked, but that's the route I would have went in, or at least keeping him alive for more of the MCU. The fact that they killed him off is something I'll touch on here in a little bit. But also Cassie's character. Now, don't get me wrong, it's great seeing Cassie have a much bigger presence in this movie, literally and figuratively at times. But there are a few things I have a little bit of issues with. I'll talk about some of that in a second, but overall I thought her character was decent. It wasn't anything like spectacular or, fantastic, but overall it was, pleasantly decent. Is that even a right phrase? I'm just trying to force as many ant puns into this as I can. I can't help myself. I'm sorry. Speaking of funny ha-has, the humor was... Speaking of puns and dad jokes, humor was also decent. For the most part, it was done pretty well, but there were definitely some moments that just did not feel good at all. It wasn't as bad as Thor Love and Thunder, thank goodness, but it definitely was noticeable in some areas and felt extremely forced. Granted, it's an Ant-Man film, so you want to have fun with it, but with the stakes of this one, I think you just need to kind of loosen the fun a little bit. Have some moments, but you don't need to up the ante with the humor on this one.
Oh, I have a bad feeling about this.
And last but not least, the bad. While I enjoyed this movie, I definitely have a few problems with it. One of those comes from just Janet Van Dyne's character. I feel like she had a weirder role in this one that was more tied to the plot rather than what actually happened to her. There's a lot of iffiness and just all that stuff. But it does, again, help further along the story, so I get it. But just a lot of it felt very, very weird, and also just her lack of wanting to share information. I mean, I get it. The guy screwed your life over and just made things terrible. But you kind of need to share that with your family so they know what they're going up against instead of not saying absolutely nothing. It just didn't make sense to me as to why she kept so hidden away, so closed off from sharing information like that. I mean, that's super vital important. You have a crazy psychomaniac that's trapped in the quantum realm. I think you'd want to talk about it. The other thing is, of course, like I mentioned earlier, is a little bit about Cassie. Now, again, I don't have too much problems with this, except for the Rey problem. Now, if you've seen Star Wars, you know exactly where I'm going with this. It's not that, she suddenly got a suit and suddenly got all this stuff. Granted, 5 years is a little bit of time, but it feels odd and just kind of thrown in there for the sake of being thrown in there, and it's not really earned or deserved. You have a lot of father-daughter moments in this movie, and that's great. That's wonderful. You should have those moments, especially with these two characters. But some of the stuff just doesn't pay off, and it's just kind of thrown in there as a little emotional beat with no sense of emotion to it. And that just throws me off. Plus, on top of that, just how did she be able to do the quantum time thing by herself? It just doesn't... Some of those things just feel very Rey Palpatine to me, and that rubs me the wrong way. Another thing, too, is MODOK, of course. I like seeing MODOK. He's wacky, weird, very weird. It's a floating head. You can't get any weirder. I take that back. You can get weirder. It just... They could have had so much potential with this character. And MODOK's a very powerful villain in the comics. And he has a bigger presence in stuff like the Avengers Assemble cartoon or stuff like that. And I just felt like you just kind of thrown in there and then just thrown out. Just for the sake of adding somewhat of an odd tie to the first movie. Again, it felt a little disingenuous to the MODOK character. And maybe it's just because I don't understand it enough. And that's totally fine. I can be wrong and I will admit when I'm wrong. But it just felt odd to me. And it could have done a little better. And I wish we got more MODOK. I would have loved to see him go against the Avengers and stuff like that. I just think it would be fun, to see more of those stories. But unfortunately, that's not what we're getting. Overall, I had a lot of fun with this movie. I enjoyed my time in the theater. And Phase 5 is honestly off to a solid start. And I know what you're wondering, Tim, where is it on the wonderful grading scale? And I give it a solid B. I mean, it's enjoyable. It's fun.
Another happy landing.
It's somewhere along the lines of like a Spider-Man Homecoming, Captain America First Avenger sort of placement for me. And I enjoyed this movie. I think it's solid. I had a fun time. Sure, there are a few issues I have with this movie, but overall, it's enjoyable. It's a fun time. It's easily the best Ant-Man movie, and I am optimistic looking forward to the rest of Phase 5 and moving forward into just the multiverse saga. They set up a lot in this movie, a lot of world building, but overall, it's solid. It's a B tier for me. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you give Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania? Let me know your thoughts. I want to hear it. I love hearing your thoughts in the comments below. So join me down there. And while you're down there, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe for more videos just like this one. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the movie if you did. And I will see you all in the next one. Have a great day. I'll see you all real soon. Bye-bye.